Ka Kynhun Myntri jong ka sarkar jala ne ka Sngi ka larai ban ompat Pynlong ka Elekshon MDC ha Garo Hills Autonomous District Council halo ka nongrim ba kampat don satya ka jingsnga ing pai ba ban Mynta ha ka Elekshon na ka daw ka jingdon uknyang jingpang COVID ha ba krem ba klap thai kwar u Myntri rang ba ka jalaw konrat ki sangma ul ong ba yamanta ka jingtre kam ha GHDC kaladon ha ka jingsin shar administrator ha ka ni ka si u Myntri rang ba ula pentip ru ya shibun ki rai ki ba ka Kynhun Myntri ka shim ha ka tai ka Sngi
that was taken today in the cabinet was regarding the general elections to the Garo Hills Autonomous District Council. The cabinet today decided to postpone the general elections to the Garo Hills Autonomous District Council to a date to be decided later, depending on the COVID-19 pandemic situation in the state. The second decision that was taken by the cabinet today was the taking over of the administration of the Garo Hills Autonomous District Council by the governor under para 16.2 of the 6th schedule to the Constitution of India. This is, of course, because of the aspect of COVID. It is not very easy to have elections in these kind of circumstances. And therefore, we felt that after taking the advice from health department and other departments concerned, we felt that during these COVID times, it may pose risk to public in general, and therefore, keeping that factor in mind, we have postponed the elections. No, I think critics can say what they have to say. That's I cannot stop the critics from saying anything. But I think we all know that this COVID is something that has affected all of us. And I think in a situation like this, it would be very difficult for us to have elections and to conduct the elections. It'll be very challenging. And therefore, because of this particular pandemic that we are all facing, the decision has been taken to postpone the elections. No, I think the administrative rule is going to be put in. The governor is, as I said, the administration will be under the governor. So we'll be proposing either the deputy commissioner or any other officer who will then take over the administration. That decision, we have left it to the DCA to propose. So whether it will be the deputy commissioner, and if deputy commissioner, then of which district of Garo Hills, or any other officer from the government, was to amend Rule 10A of the Meghalaya State Guest Rule 1991. This particular amendment will allow state guests who may be accorded the status of a state guest would be retired judges and his or her spouse and two other dependents, members of the family, during their visit to Meghalaya houses at Kolkata and at New Delhi. And such provisions will also be extended to former governors and former chief ministers. So this amendment was made in the Meghalaya state guest rules. The second decision that was taken in the cabinet today was to reduce the administrative cost for land acquisition from 10% to 2.5%. The right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013 came into force with effect from 1st January 2014 in all parts of the country, being a central act. With the enforcement of the new Act 2013, the old Act, Land Acquisition Act 1894, had been repealed. There is a provision for administrative costs envisaged in both the right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013 and Land Acquisition Act 1894. Earlier, the old Act of 1894, the Revenue and Disaster Management Department levied charges of 20,000 and above 8% of for administration for establishment and 2% for contingency charges. This amount, as mentioned, has now been reduced to 2.5%. And the Revenue and Disaster Management Department, after considering all aspects, has worked out that the rates for defense, IBBF, and BOPs should be at 2% and contingency at 0.5, that is 2.5. For national highways and state roads, again 2.5. All central and state projects and state government departments at 8%, and any other project other than the above mentioned at the old rate, which is 10%. So this has been done actually in terms of the bigger projects like the national highways that are taken up. In those, the agency charges were very high. So in the land acquisition, if the agency charges are at 10%, then it becomes very high for the concerned authorities. And therefore, that amount has been reduced, keeping in mind these big infrastructure projects. And the agency charge, as I said, in those cases, the administrative cost, is reduced to 2.5. So that was the second decision that was taken in the cabinet today. The third decision that was taken in the cabinet was renaming of roads. The cabinet today, after the proposal that has been given by the naming committee, has proposed A, that the Maulai Bypass Road is being proposed and it's been decided that it will be named as Founder Strong Kaji Road. This is the Maulai Bypass. Will be named the Founder Strong Kaji Road. The second decision that was taken was the Long Round Road from TSS Road Junction to FCI Godown is proposed to be named as Archbishop Dominic Jala Road. I repeat, the Long Round Road from TSS Road Junction to FCI Godown is proposed to be renamed as Archbishop Dominic Jala Road. The fourth decision that was taken in the cabinet today was to form a new company. There's a proposal to set up a special purpose vehicle, i.e. the Meghalaya Energy Efficiency Limited under the Power Department. This is being done as one of the power sector reforms which the Government of India has mandated all the state governments to do. This will have two purposes and two effects. Number one, energy efficiency is a subject that is of key importance today in the power sector. Therefore, a need to have an agency, a company, a special purpose vehicle, whatever nomenclature you would like to use, in order to look into the aspects of efficiency is needed. And hence, the Meghalaya Energy Efficiency Limited has been formed. The other part of this reformation is that Government of India has laid down conditions to all the state governments that in order to avail the additional 2% loan factor from the banks, which is 4%, which is 5% of the GSDP of the states, the 2% additional amount which Government of India has agreed has been on the condition of implementation of One Nation, One Ration Card, 2, the ease of doing business reforms, 3, the urban local body utility reforms, and 4, power sector reforms. Therefore, by doing this reform and by achieving higher efficiency in the energy sector, which would ultimately help the overall energy sector in the state, we are also creating this reform which will enable the government also to access the additional debt ceiling that the Government of India has given to all the state governments in the country. That was the fourth decision that was taken. The fifth decision today was the introduction of central bonded warehouse and addition of new Rule 211A and Rule 44.1 to 45.14 of the Meghalaya Bonded Warehouse Rules. This particular amendment would allow the state government to have a central bonded warehouse. This central bonded warehouse would be above all the other bonds. And through this central bonded warehouse, the bonds would then purchase all the necessary products through the central bonded warehouse. The purpose and objective of setting this bonded warehouse is multiple. Number one, the ad valorem that was being collected from the different bonds, there are 44 bonds in the state, will now be paid by this particular central bonded warehouse. This will ensure that the revenue collection is from one source, which would mean that it would reduce the chances of any kind of leakage in revenue. If so, if that existed, it would ensure that it would plug those particular loopholes and it would plug those particular gaps in the system. Number two, this would also allow the bonds to function in a much more economical manner because they would not have to purchase large quantities directly from the factory. They would be able to take as their requirement is from the central bonded warehouses. Third, these bonds would also be given a minimum profit margin eligibility of 8%. This aspect was not there earlier, and the bonds were not given any assurance in terms of percentage. But for the first time, the bonds will receive a minimum profit margin of 8%. And further, the bonds will not have to pay the ad valorem anymore. The ad valorem pressure or the ad valorem payment will go to the central bonded warehouse. Hence, the financial implications on the bonds also would reduce. This would in no way impact the revenue and the profit structure and profit margin of the retail shops. This particular bonded warehouse would be based on a competitive bidding process, which the process will start as we have cleared the cabinet in the cabinet today. And we are sure that with the implementation of this particular proposal of having a central bonded warehouse, the overall revenue of the excise department and the state government would jump manyfold.